Hi, everybody. Welcome to God's Got This World. Hope you're having a great day. Get yourself a nice cup of coffee, tea, hot chocolate, maybe, cookie, maybe some cake or pie. Any of the above will work. And let's get right into it. We're moving on to Genesis chapter 28. And this is about Isaac's instructions to his family. So Isaac called in Jacob and then gave him a blessing. And he said, "Don't marry, Jacob, any of those Canaanite women. Go at once to your mother's father's Bethuel in northern Syria and choose a wife from one of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. I pray that God All-Powerful will bless you with many descendants and let you become a great nation. May he bless you with the land he gave Abraham so that you will take over this land where we now live as foreigners." Isaac then sent Jacob to stay with Rebekah's brother Laban, the son of Bethuel the Aramean. Now Esau found out that his father Isaac had blessed Jacob and had warned him not to marry any of the Canaanite women. He also learned that Jacob had been sent to find a wife in northern Syria and that he had obeyed his mother and father. Esau already had several wives, but he realized at last how much his father hated the Canaanite women. So he married Ishmael's daughter, Mahalath, who was the sister of Nebaioth and the granddaughter of Abraham. Now Jacob left the town of Beersheba and started out for Haran. And at sunset, he stopped for the night and went to sleep, resting his head on a large rock. And in a dream, he saw a ladder that reached from earth to heaven, and God's angels were going up and down on it. That must have been quite the sight to see. The Lord was standing beside the ladder, and he said, "I am the Lord God, who was worshipped by Abraham and Isaac. I will give to you and your family the land on which you are now sleeping. Your descendants will spread over the earth in all directions and will become as numerous as the specks of dust. Your family will be a blessing to all people. Wherever you go, I will watch over you, and then later I will bring you back to this land. I won't leave you. I will do all I have promised." God is so good. Jacob woke up suddenly and thought, "The Lord is in this place, and I didn't even know it." Then Jacob became frightened and said, "This is a fearsome place. It must be the house of God and the ladder to heaven." When Jacob got up early the next morning, he took the rock that he had used for a pillow and he stood it up for a place of worship. And then he poured olive oil on the rock to dedicate it to God. And he named the place Bethel. Before that, it had been named Luz. Jacob solemnly promised God, "If you go with me and watch over me as I travel, and if you give me food and clothes and bring me safely home again, you will be my God. This rock will be your house, and I will give back to you 1/10 of everything you give me." There's the tithe there. As Jacob continued on his way to the east, he looked out in a field and saw a well where shepherds took their sheep for water. 3 flocks of sheep were lying around the well, which was covered with a large rock. Shepherds would roll the rock away when their sheep had gathered there. Then after the sheep had been watered, the shepherds would roll the rock back over the mouth of the well. Jacob asked the shepherds, "Where are you from?" "We're from Haran," they answered. Then he asked, "Do you know Nahor's grandson, Laban?" "Yes, we do," they replied. "How is he?" Jacob asked. "He's fine," they answered, "and here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep." Jacob told them, "Look, the sun is still high up in the sky, and it's too early to bring in the rest of the flocks. Water your sheep and take them back to the pasture." But they replied, "We can't do that until they all get here, and the rock has been rolled away from the well." While Jacob was still talking with the men, his cousin Rachel came up with her father's sheep. And when Jacob saw her and his uncle's sheep, he rolled the rock away and watered the sheep. He then kissed Rachel and started crying because he was so happy. He told her that he was the son of her aunt Rebecca, and she ran and told her father about him. Well, as soon as Laban heard the news, he ran out to meet Jacob. He hugged and kissed him and brought him to his home, where Jacob told him everything that had happened. Laban said, "You are my nephew, and you are like one of my own family." After Jacob had been there for a month, Laban said to him, "You shouldn't have to work without pay. Just because you are a relative of mine, what do you want me to give you?" Laban had two daughters, Leah, who was older than Rachel, but her eyes didn't sparkle, while Rachel was beautiful and had a good figure. Since Jacob was in love with Rachel, he answered, "If you will let me marry Rachel, I'll work 7 years for you." He really loved Rachel. 7 years. Laban replied, "It's better for me to let you marry Rachel than for someone else to have her, so stay and work for me." So Jacob worked 7 years for Laban, but the time seemed like only a few days because he loved Rachel so much. Jacob said to Laban, "The time is up, and I want to marry Rachel now." So Laban gave a big feast and invited all the neighbors. But that evening he brought Leah to Jacob, who married her and spent the night with her. Laban also gave Zilpah to Leah as her servant woman. The next morning, Jacob found out that he had married Leah, and he asked Laban, "Why did you do this to me? Didn't I work to get Rachel? Why did you trick me? I've worked 7 years for you." Laban replied, "In our country, the older daughter must get married first. And after you spend this week with Leah, you may also marry Rachel, but you will have to work for me another 7 years." Oh my goodness. At the end of the week of celebration, Laban let Jacob marry Rachel, and he gave her his servant woman Bilhah. Jacob loved Rachel more than he did Leah, but he had to work another 7 years for Laban. The Lord knew that Jacob loved Rachel more than he did Leah, and so he gave children to Leah, but not to Rachel. Leah gave birth to a son, and he named him Reuben, because she said, "The Lord has taken away my sorrow. Now my husband will love me more than he does Rachel." She had a second son and named him Simeon, because she said, "The Lord has heard that my husband doesn't love me." When Leah's third son was born, she said, "Now my husband will hold me close." So this son was named Levi. She had one more son and named him Judah, because she said, "I'll praise the Lord." And isn't it interesting that Jesus comes from the tribe of Judah? And this is the beginning of the 12 tribes of Israel. Rachel was very jealous of Leah for having children, and she said to Jacob, "I'll die if you don't give me some children." But Jacob became upset with Rachel, and he answered, "Don't blame me. I'm not God." "Here, take my servant Bilhah," Rachel told him. "Have children by her, and I'll let them be born on my knees to show that they are mine." Then Rachel let Jacob marry Bilhah, and they had a son. And Rachel named him Dan, because she said, "God has answered my prayers. He has judged me and given me a son." When Bilhah and Jacob had a second son, Rachel said, "I've struggled hard with my sister, and I've won." So she named the boy Naphtali. When Leah realized she could not have any more children, she let Jacob marry her servant Zilpah, and they had a son. "I'm really lucky," Leah said, and she named the boy Gad. When they had another son, Leah exclaimed, "I'm happy now, and all the women will say how happy I am." So she named him Asher. Now, during this time of the wheat harvest, Reuben found some love flowers and took them to his mother Leah. And Rachel asked Leah for some of them. But Leah said, "It's bad enough that you stole my husband. Now you want my son's flowers too?" "All right," Rachel answered, "let me have the flowers, and you can sleep with Jacob tonight." That evening, when Jacob came in from the fields, Leah told him, "You're sleeping with me tonight. I hired you with my son's flowers." They slept together that night, And God answered Leah's prayers by giving her a fifth son. And Leah shouted, God has rewarded me for letting Jacob marry my servant. And she named the boy Issachar. When Leah had another son, she exclaimed, God has given me a wonderful gift, and my husband will praise me for giving him 6 sons. So she named the boy Zebulun. Later, Leah had a daughter and named her Dinah. One girl in all the works. Finally, God remembered Rachel. He answered her prayer by giving her a son. God has taken away my disgrace, she said. I'll name the boy Joseph, and I'll pray that the Lord will give me another son. Now, after Joseph was born, Jacob said to Laban, Please release me from our agreement and let me return to my own country. You know how hard I've worked for you, so let me take my wives and children and leave. But Laban told him, If you really are my friend, stay on and I'll pay whatever you ask. I'm sure the Lord has blessed me because of you. Jacob answered, You've seen how hard I've worked for you, and you know how your flocks and herds have grown under my care. You didn't have much before I came, but the Lord has blessed everything I've ever done for you. Now it's time for me to start looking out for my own family. How much do you want me to pay you? Laban asked. Then Jacob told him, I don't want you to pay me anything. Just do one thing, and I'll take care of your sheep and goats. Let me go through your flocks and herds and take the sheep and goats that are either spotted or speckled, and the black lambs. That's all you need to give me. In the future, you can easily find out if I've been honest. Just look and see if my animals are either spotted or speckled, or if the lambs are black. And if they aren't, they've been stolen from you. I agree to that, said Laban. Before the end of the day, Laban had separated his spotted and speckled animals and the black lambs from the others, and had put his sons in charge of them. Then Laban made Jacob keep the rest of the sheep and goats at a distance of 3 days' journey. Jacob cut branches from some poplar trees and from almond and evergreen trees. He peeled off part of the bark and made the branches look spotted and speckled. And then he put the branches where the sheep and the goats would see them, while they were drinking from the water trough. Well, the goats mated there in front of the branches, and their young were spotted and speckled. Some of the sheep that Jacob was keeping for Laban was already spotted. And when the others were ready to mate, he made sure that they faced in the direction of the spotted and black ones. In this way, Jacob built up a flock of sheep for himself and did not put them with the other sheep. When the stronger sheep were mating near the drinking place, Jacob made sure that the spotted branches were there, but he would not put out the branches when the weaker animals were mating. So Jacob got all of the healthy animals, and Laban got all that was left. Jacob soon became very rich and successful. He owned many sheep, goats, camels, donkeys, as well as a lot of slaves. Now Jacob had heard that Laban's sons were complaining. Jacob is now a rich man, and he got everything he owns from our father. Jacob also noticed that Laban was not as friendly as he had been before. So one day the Lord said, Jacob, go back to your relatives in the land of your ancestors, and I will bless you. Jacob sent for Rachel and Leah to meet him in the field where he kept his sheep, and he told them, Your father isn't as friendly with me as he used to be, but the God my ancestors worshipped has been on my side. You know that I have worked hard for your father, and that he keeps cheating me by changing my wages time after time. But God has protected me. When your father said the speckled sheep would be my wages, all of them were speckled. And when he said the spotted ones would be mine, all of them were spotted. That's how God has taken sheep and goats from your father and given them to me. Once, when the flocks were mating, I dreamed that all the rams were either spotted or speckled. And then God's angel called me by name. I answered, and he said, Notice that all the rams are either spotted or speckled. I know everything Laban is doing to you, and I am the God you worshipped at Bethel when you poured olive oil on a rock and made a promise to me. Leave here right away and return to the land where you were born. Rachel and Leah said to Jacob, "There's nothing left for us to inherit from our father. He treats us like foreigners and has even cheated us out of the bride price that should have been ours. Now do whatever God tells you to do. Even the property God took from our father and gave to you really belongs to us and our children." Then Jacob, his wives, and his children got on camels and they left for the home of his father Isaac in Canaan. Jacob took all the flocks, the herds, and other property that he had gotten in northern Syria. Before Rachel left, she stole the household idols while Laban was out shearing his sheep. Jacob tricked Laban the Aramean by not saying that he intended to leave. And when Jacob crossed the Euphrates River and headed for the hill country of Gilead, he took with him everything he owned. 3 days later, though, Laban found out that Jacob had gone. So he took some of his relatives along and chased after Jacob for 7 days before catching up with him in the hill country of Gilead. But God appeared to Laban in a dream that night and warned, "Don't say a word to Jacob. Don't make a threat or a promise." Jacob had set up camp in the hill country of Gilead when Laban and his relatives came, and he set up camp in another part of the hill country. Well, Laban went to Jacob and he said, "Look what you've done. You've tricked me and run off with my daughters like a kidnapper. Why did you sneak away without telling me? I would have given you a going away party with singing and with music on tambourines and harps. You didn't even give me a chance to kiss my own grandchildren and daughters goodbye. That was really foolish. I could easily hurt you, but the God your father worshipped has warned me not to make any threats or promises." Wow. "I can understand why you were eager to return to your father, but why did you have to steal my idols?" Jacob answered, "I left secretly because I was afraid you would take your daughters from me by force. If you find that any one of us has taken your idols, I'll have that person killed. Let your relatives be witnesses. Show me what belongs to you, and you can take it back." But Jacob did not realize that Rachel had stolen the household idols. Laban searched the tents of Jacob, Leah, and the two servant women, but did not find the idols. Then he started for Rachel's tent, but she had already hidden them in the cushion she used as a saddle and was sitting on it. Laban searched everywhere and did not find them. And Rachel said, "Father, please don't be angry with me for not getting up. I'm having my period." Laban kept on searching, but still did not find the idols. Jacob became very angry and said to Laban, "What have I done wrong? Have I committed some crime? Is that why you hunted me down? After searching through everything I have, did you find anything of yours? If so, put it here, where your relatives and mine can see it. Then we can decide what to do. In all the 20 years that I've worked for you," 20 years Jacob worked for Laban, "not one of your sheep or goats has had a miscarriage, and I've never eaten one of your rams. If a wild animal killed one of your sheep or goats, I paid for it myself. In fact, you demanded the full price, whether the animal was killed during the day or killed at night. I sweated every day, and I couldn't sleep at night because of the cold." Poor Jacob. "I had to work 14 of these 20 long years to earn your 2 daughters and another 6 years to buy your sheep and goats. And during that time, you kept changing my wages. If the fearsome God worshipped by Abraham and my father Isaac had not been on my side, you would have sent me away without a thing. But God saw my hard work, and he knew the trouble I was in, so he helped me. Then last night he told me how wrong you were." And I just want to interject here with, God sees everything we do, and we ask him, he helps us. And even sometimes when we don't ask, he helps us, because God rains blessings on the just and the unjust. He's such a good God. Trust in him. Laban then said to Jacob, "Leah and Rachel are my daughters, and their children belong to me. All these sheep you are taking are really mine too. In fact, everything you have belongs to me, but there is nothing I can do to keep my daughters and their children. So I am ready to make an agreement with you, and we will pile up some large rocks right here to remind us of this agreement. After Jacob had set up a large rock, he told his men to get some more rocks and pile them up next to it. And then Jacob and Laban ate a meal together beside the rocks. Laban named the pile of rocks Jagar, but Jacob called it Galeed. Laban said to Jacob, "This pile of rocks will remind us of our agreement." That's why the place was named Galeed. Laban also said, "This pile of rocks means that the Lord will watch us both while we are apart from each other." So the place was also named Mizpah. Then Laban said, "If you mistreat my daughters or marry other women, I may not know about it, but remember, God is watching us." Both this pile of rocks and this large rock have been set up between us as a reminder, and I must never go beyond them to attack you, and you must never go beyond them to attack me. My father Nahor, your grandfather Abraham, and their ancestors all worship the same God, and he will make sure that we each keep the agreement. Then Jacob made a promise in the name of the fearsome God his father Isaac had worshipped. Jacob killed an animal and offered it as a sacrifice there right on the mountain, and he invited his men to eat with him. And after the meal, they spent the night on the mountain. Early the next morning, Laban kissed his daughters and his grandchildren goodbye. Then he left to go back home. Well, as Jacob was on his way back home, some of God's angels came and met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's camp." So he named the place Mahanaim. Jacob sent messengers on ahead to Esau, who lived in the land of Seir, also known as Edom. Jacob told them to say to Esau, "Master, I am your servant. I have lived with Laban all this time, and now I own cattle, donkeys, sheep, many slaves. Master, I'm sending these messengers in the hope that you will be kind to me." When the messengers returned, they told Jacob, "We went to your brother Esau, and now he's heading this way with 400 men." Jacob was so frightened that he divided his people, sheep, cattle, camels, into two groups. He thought, if Esau attacks one group, well, perhaps the other can escape. Then Jacob prayed, "You, Lord, are the God who was worshipped by my grandfather Abraham and by my father Isaac. You told me to return home to my family, and you promised to be with me and make me successful. I don't deserve all the good things you have done for me, your servant. When I first crossed the Jordan, I had only my walking stick, but now I have two large groups of people and animals too. Please rescue me from my brother. I am afraid he will come and attack not only me, but my wives and my children as well. But you have promised that I would be a success and that someday it will be as hard to count my descendants as it is to count the stars in the sky." Well, after Jacob had spent the night there, he chose some animals as gifts for Esau: 200 female goats and 20 males, 200 female sheep and 20 males, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows and 10 bulls, and 20 female donkeys and 10 males. Jacob put servants in charge of his herd, and he told them, "Go ahead of me and keep a space between each herd." And then he said to the servant in charge of the first herd, "When Esau meets you, he will ask whose servant you are. He will want to know where you are going and who owns those animals in front of you. So tell him, they belong to your servant Jacob, who is coming this way, and he's sending them as a gift to his master Esau." Jacob also told the men in charge of the second and third herds and those who followed to say the same thing when they met Esau. And Jacob told them to be sure to say that he was right behind them. Jacob hoped the gifts would make Esau friendly, so Esau would be glad to see him when they met and not kill him. Jacob's men took the gifts on ahead of him, but he spent the night in camp, so he stayed behind. Jacob got up in the middle of the night and he took his wives, his 11 children, and everything he owned across to the other side of the Jabbok River for safety. And afterwards, Jacob went back and spent the rest of the night alone. A man came and fought with Jacob until just before daybreak. When the man saw that he could not win, he struck Jacob on the hip and threw it out of joint. They kept on wrestling until the man said, "Let go of me. It's almost daylight." "You can't go unless you bless me," Jacob replied. And then the man asked, "What's your name?" "Jacob," he answered. The man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob. You have wrestled with God and with men, and you have won. That's why your name will be Israel." Jacob said, "Now tell me your name." "Don't you know who I am?" he asked. And he blessed Jacob. And I often wondered if that was the Lord himself or it was one of his angels. Jacob said, "I have seen God face to face, and I am still alive." So he named the place Peniel. The sun was coming up as Jacob was leaving Peniel. He was limping because he had been struck on the hip, and the muscle on his hip joint had been injured. And that's why even today the people of Israel don't eat the hip muscle of any animal. Later that day, and I don't know if that's true or not, so comment down below if you know, if you're from Israel or know that custom that you don't eat the hip muscle of any animal. Later that day, Jacob met Esau coming with his 400 men, sorry. So Jacob had his children walk with their mothers. The two servant women, Zilpah and Bilhah, together with their children, they went first, followed by Leah and her children, then by Rachel and Joseph. Jacob himself walked in front of them all, bowing to the ground 7 times as he came near his brother. But Esau ran toward Jacob and hugged and kissed him. Then the two brothers started to cry. When Esau noticed the women and children, he asked, "Whose children are these?" Jacob answered, "These are the ones the Lord has been kind enough to give to me, your servant." And then the two servant women and their children came and bowed down to Esau. Next, Leah and her children came and bowed down. Finally, Joseph and Rachel also came, and they bowed down. Esau asked Jacob, "What did you mean by these herds I met along the road?" "Master," Jacob answered, "I sent them so that you would be friendly to me." "But brother, I already have plenty," Esau said. "Keep them for yourself." "No," Jacob said, "please accept these gifts as a sign of your friendship for me. When you welcomed me and I saw your face, it was like seeing the face of God. Please accept these gifts I brought to you. God has been good to me, and I have everything I need." Jacob kept insisting until Esau accepted the gifts. "Let's get ready to travel," Esau said. "I'll go along with you." Brothers finally reunited. But Jacob answered, "Master, you know traveling is hard on children, and I have to look after the sheep and goats that are nursing their young. If my animals travel too much in one day, they will all die. Why don't you go on ahead and let me travel along slowly with the children, the herds, and the flocks? We can meet again in the country of Edom." Esau replied, "Let me leave some of my men with you." "Ah, you don't have to do that," Jacob answered. "I am happy simply knowing that you are friendly to me." So Esau left for Edom, but Jacob went to Succoth, where he built a house for himself and set up shelters for his animals. That's why the place is called Succoth, or Sukkot, where we build tabernacles and live with the Lord. He tabernacles with us. After leaving northern Syria, Jacob arrived safely at Shechem in Canaan and set up camp outside the city. The land where he camped was owned by the descendants of Hamor, the son of Shechem. So Jacob paid them 100 pieces of silver for the property. And when he set up his tents and built up an altar there to honor the God of Israel. Dinah, the daughter of Jacob and Leah, went to visit some of the women who lived there. She was seen by Hamor's son Shechem, the leader of the Hivites, and he grabbed her and raped her. But Shechem was attracted to Dinah, so he told her how much he loved her. He even asked his father to get her for his wife. we're going to stop right here and we'll carry on next with Dinah and see what happens in this tragic tale. So, again, I just want to say, if you don't know the Lord Jesus, I honestly got to say, you don't know what you're missing. He's a wonderful, wonderful God. And he sees you and hears your prayers and he answers those prayers and he heals you. He's closer than a brother, closer than a mother or father. He's your best friend. And you can make him your best friend simply by accepting him. Let go of the worldly things. They haven't got you anywhere. They can't save you or make your life happy. Only God in heaven can. So accept him. And if you want to accept him today, please follow after me. Lord Jesus, I love you with all my heart. I may not know you well, but I'm asking that you come in, Jesus, and live your life in me. Forgive me my sins, past and present, and even the ones I will do in the future, the ones I know about and the ones I'm ignorant of. Fill me with your love and peace that surpasses all understanding, Lord, and help me to live my life for you. In your holy name, Jesus. If you said that prayer, please comment down below, like and subscribe this video, and we'll carry on for the next time. Have a great day. God bless you.